It's rather interesting that tonight began with a little bit of chaos that has never happened in 30 years, that we go for a meeting at Pam's and we can't get in. And we find another place, and the other place is right here, and it's a block distance. So that kind of underwrote the idea this evening isn't going to be like all the other evenings. And so far it started out in that direction. One of the best ways to jump right into it, I suppose. Last summer, the summer of 2013, my usual eye checkup found that the normal eye pressure should be about 12, 10, etc. In one eye, for me, it was 13 or 15, and the other eye it was 25 or 27. So it began an endless series of eye drops, and let's try this one, it might work better, no, that one might work better. And the pressure kept going up, and he said that what he was looking at was something that he hadn't encountered more than once or twice in 30 years of practice. Perhaps there was a chance that things could improve by my having the cataract in my right eye surgically removed. That's such a quick, easy thing, you hardly know it's done. A week after that, much better result. Week after that, back up to 20, 25. This time when it hit 39, he said, this is going to be major surgery. So he put me in touch with an excellent eye surgeon in Allentown. And just for the record or for the notebooks, Allentown's about an hour's drive from me. It's 45 to 50 miles, probably more than an hour. Okay, he turned out to be a wonderful surgeon, a man with presence, a man with quality. And he said, we must move fast to save you from being completely blind in that eye. So we set up a surgery for a few days later. Surgery was made. I can't tell anybody's face with my right eye. I have maybe 5% vision. I can't see. I'm legally blind in this eye. I can't recognize anybody. I don't see how many fingers I've got up. I can't see. Okay. I still kept driving, and I still am driving with my left eye only. And with my left eye, I can see up to here, say. Past that, I cannot see anything there that looks like I can't see anything. Completely gone. Okay. Figured I'd live with that. One of the interesting features about Allentown was it's a much bigger town than the village I live in. And the man who had been my so-called family doctor for a good 8-10 years, Dr. Darshan Patel, Indian, and he and I had a wonderful relationship going. done. What do you think if you give me a test for vitamin D and this and that, and line up a test for me for this and that? And he was the guy who arranged my tests and things like that, so I could see what was happening with my supplements. Terrific. Never anything wrong. Terrific. But by the summer of last year, he had moved physically to Allentown, better position for him. He was there. I said, well, it's the beginning of end of November in there, beginning of December. We're going to leave for Ecuador in 2-3 weeks. I'm going to try to find another family doctor just to start with one. Okay. I ask around, the best thing that comes up, this particular doctor. He said, let's have a blood and urine test naturally. We did that. Come back next week for results. Said, I see a lot of white cells, more than I should be seeing. I see a lot of red cells. I see a lot of action there. There seems to be major infection. He said, from all the markers that I see, you could have a cancer. The only way to define whether you have a cancer or not, the only way is to enter the organ, cut into the growth, send the growth to a laboratory, and the laboratory is the only one who can tell if that growth is malignant. There is no other way. Every machine, and there are lots of machines, and they are very expensive and so forth, they give you an approximate idea, but they can't tell for sure. The way you do this is to insert a tube through the penis up into the bladder, and inside that tube, which, well, how small can it be, is a camera. And that camera takes all kinds of pictures of what's going on within you. Those pictures can be seen on the local television. They can be studied, etc., etc. Pictures came out. There's a malignant growth in my bladder. So the only way to tell the nature of the growth, where we really are with this, is to go inside and cut a piece of the tumor and send that piece to the laboratory, who will tell us exactly what's going on. Okay, it's an uncomfortable procedure, but it's done. Specimen goes to the lab. It's an advanced, very malignant growth. Very powerful. It has already eaten into the wall of my bladder. An attempt is made by the doctor, by the surgeon, to remove it. He can't remove it, it's too large. So he removes the part that he can, leaves what he can't. I'm advised to enter chemotherapy, the other radial, burn them, cut them, etc. And I know the survival rate for that is no more than 3% at this point. So I declined doing that. I'm told, well, if you don't do this, the results look, you're in bad trouble. I said, bad trouble? No, I'm not going to have the good cells eaten up by the chemicals that eat up the bad cells. So, no. He said, well, do whatever you want. I realized that I'm leaving for Ecuador in the latter part of December. Well, let me back up a moment here. When I get this diagnosis, and I had always said to myself, in these nondescript, little, highly efficient offices where doctors work, there's a scale, there's this, there's that, maybe one picture of a garden on the wall, completely nondescript. This is where people sometimes get the bad news. I would like you to sit down, madam. So I sat down, they gave me the bad news. I felt absolutely nothing emotionally. Nothing. Wow.
When is this now? What month or whatever?
This is in December of 13.
Okay.
I feel nothing. He said, do you still intend to leave the country? I said, yes, I'm leaving in about 4 or 5 days. All right. I'm surprised that I'm not afraid. I don't feel anything except, boy, this is going to be some fight. This is going to be the fight of my life here. This is no joking matter. Okay. I'm still going to go to Ecuador. So, in 4 or 5 days or so, Sue and I get ready, we go to Ecuador. And this is our 4th season in Ecuador. Oh, good, we're all back. Let's have a sort of like a dinner and snacks and that sort of thing at a dear friend's home. Okay, we'll go. About 10 or 15 people. Some I know very well, some I've met once, some I've never met. And Sue, of course, is with me. This man appears and says, my name is Robert, Bob. How do you do? How do you do? So you're a musician, and then we start to talk socially. And something tells me that there's something more to this man than meets the eye. We talk more, and he sends me a note that evening, an email, saying, I'm very, very glad to have met you. I think we have something that's worth having. I'm very fond of you, and I'm hoping to see you again in the very near future. Okay, thank you. I write back, thank you, I found you fond too. We have lunch. He's been an entertainer. He's had a very wide past.
Nina. Hi, hold on a moment.
Wendy, you can go to the other room.
Where is that?
America. Currently working in Ecuador as a psychotherapist in a wellness program. And he seems to me to be a very, very sensitive man. I'm sure he would be delighted to be here right now. He's the kind of man who does belong here right now. So I tell him what my diagnosis was. He said, the program I work with, we're not doctors. We're working with the idea that through natural medication, through natural contemplation, meditation, by changing the way you live your life, you have a chance to surmount this illness. He says, I'm going to call the man who is in charge, and I want you to meet him. We'll both meet with him, and we'll see where that takes us. This is amazing. Wow. Here I am. I've got all the doors back in Pennsylvania are closed behind me. Well, if you don't take the chemotherapy and our system, this is the way we deal with cancer in the United States. Go do whatever you want, but so I've got no doors behind me. I meet this man who I see him, and I look, wow. This man has a composure. This man has a way of speaking. I know that this man has worked on himself for a long time, and he's really, really top drawer. The protocol that he's working with goes along, and let me take a moment to say first, the way the numbers are in the United States and in most of the developed world is at least 1 out of 3 men will get cancer. About 3 out of 4 families will have cancer in the home, whether it be a parent, a child, somehow. None of us are going to escape the idea that this illness is now worldwide ravaging. So we come to the conclusion that to do something the way we would like to do it, naturalistically, a person is going to have to change every aspect of their life, how they think, how they feel, what they do, what they eat, every single thing. And he reminds me, this is going to be a full-time job. So I start with him. He's got something called a RIFE, R-I-F-E machine, which was popular in the whole civilized world. The United States government has banned its use, so it's no longer found here. It can be found in Mexico, it can be found in Canada. I'm working with that.
So can you get me that pad has her phone?
One of the basic ideas is that a cell is merely a small percentage of what we are as people. When you and I, as people, are somewhat afraid, we turn back, we cover. When a cell meets something that it can't handle too well, it covers, closes. From its closed, covered position, it cannot get warmth and it cannot get light. That is one of the basic factors of all cancer cells. Cells that cannot get light, cannot get food, and live basically on sugar, glucose. So as patients in this area, we must change the idea of our body, yours and mine, all of us, which at present in a healthy condition runs on glucose. We've got to turn it off to no longer run on glucose, but to run on, what's the thing it runs on next?
I don't know. Sucrose?
Keto, was it some keto?
Right, exactly, on keto. Okay, that's done through more than rigorous diet. I can't come near anything that smells or thinks or tastes of being sweet. There are many protocols. One of the more popular ones is something called the Laetrile protocol, which are the seeds that are found inside apricots. This has a big play in other parts of the world, big play in Mexico. Here it's completely called junk. And we're talking about the educated people in the medical field. And they always point back to the fact that the actor Steve McQueen developed cancer, went to Mexico to a Laetrile clinic, and died there. He was a young man. He was 49 or 50 years old. So I enter this because a cancer cell is something that flees from warmth. It is always to be found in a part of your body that is dark, that is cold. I enter into something called heat therapy, still doing parts of it. There's also something called oxygen therapy, which is like, I'd say, a round tube about the height of this table. It is round, it begins here, just enough room for your body to sit in, lying down. And that you wear with a mask. The pressure inside that area is highly raised, and what you're breathing in is pure oxygen. First time that door closed behind me, which it closes with a snap, I am locked in here. I can barely turn around. There's no getting out of this unless the person who is looking after this machine stays where they are. But it's a young, very attractive woman. And I'm saying, well, so suppose her boyfriend calls her. She says, I'm just going to step out for a moment. Oh my God, I forgot that guy from New York. He's in the machine. Naturally, when it has a chance, paranoia will sing the blues. So I'm very uptight the first session, completely painless. Uptight the second session, but by the third section, this is very good. I feel very good, terrific in there. I have a total of 5 sessions. There are numerous electrical devices because the human being is a collection of impulses and electricities. All right, to make a long story even shorter, I see this man, his name is Patrick, in the wellness center about 3 times a week. My diet is mostly 900% greens and vegetables. I finally find, and the juice has to be made, so I ingest maybe 50 carrots a day,
No, not that many a day.
about 20.
Yeah.
About 20 carrots a day, should be more. And we finally, through luck, and what I'm speaking of here is the magic of all these things that is constantly whirling me. We get a machine to juice, to make juice out of carrots, not a blender to make a malted juice. An expensive but complicated machine. You have to cut peels up, put them in there. Good heavens. Powers that be above send me a young woman who needs a job, who Sue trains to work this machine. She goes out and buys the product at a natural food store, which is available to me. She brings the product home, makes the juice, cooks food, cleans up the apartment 3 times a week for a staggering $4 an hour. And she's delighted to have this good job. I stay with that. Meantime, I've noticed I'm losing some weight. Back at the beginning of all this, my average weight was 175 pounds. Now I look at my machine in Cuenca, I weigh 128 pounds. My old trousers are size 40s and 38s. They just close all the buttons and they slide right off me. I use trousers now 32 and 30. But I continue with my work, and I'm feeling that this is the happiest part of my life. This has been a wake-up call, like I always knew somehow I have to get to another level. I've been at this level for years. Have to get to another level. What I'm missing the most among everything I have in my life is that I wish I had an intimacy, more of a closeness with God. I want to believe I have never too much in my life been somebody who prays or believes in God. I start to get closer, I begin to have a sense of gratitude that I have found Robert, who took me to Patrick, who put me into this school. Some of the people in the group that I'm part with are all cancer patients. We are each committed to studying as much as we can about the illness, what it takes, where it goes, where some of the best machines are. The best machine for one part of it that's able to burn something with heat right on the spot with a thin razor, and it burns it away, is a machine. The only one that's around is in Germany. One of our guys went there, spent 2 weeks there, took about 5 treatments. All the cancer is gone for now. So I'm working, studying, reading, and finding that I have never felt so close to myself. I have never in my life felt this close to Sue. I have never in my life, not 100 times a day, maybe 500 times or more, God, thank you for putting me in a position where I had to wake up as much as I possibly could. I begin to nourish the ideas. God loves me. And what I want more than anything is to come closer and closer to God in my lifetime. Am I getting better? I don't know. I think so, maybe. Who knows? For years I've been teaching we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And everyone I've ever met said, of course, we don't have any idea about tomorrow. Of course, you're right. None of us know how long we're going to live. And as an idea, no one denies it and everyone accepts it. But when this is happening, it's not happening in the idea part. It's happening in the heart and emotional part. Anybody who's in this position is clear today. You're in remission. Tomorrow you go and there's something is found growing. Well, you got it again. Many people sort of win the first round. A good healthy number win the second round when it has come back once. Very, very, very few, if any, win the third round. That's the one that takes you out. Down there, I'm beginning to notice the politics of medicine, which I'll go into in a minute, the ones in the United States, which even down there are affected. I've got a piece of tumor in me. It's part in my bladder wall, and no one will take it out because I'm not enrolling for the treatment, which is chemotherapy or this or that. But you can't be a patient. How can I, as a doctor, say, I cut him and he's got no treatment plan? I don't have a treatment plan with, I haven't got a patient. I find from nowhere this very, very good surgeon who says, I'll cut, but it stays between us, and you must sign that I warned you that if you didn't take the remainder of this treatment, you face death. So he cut, and I could lie down in my operating table and watch the television, which shows it being ground. I'm taking it. Okay, it's taken out. Now I have one issue gone, another one enters. I am incontinent, which means on the average I have about 30 seconds before I have to jump out of my chair and go to the bathroom, anywhere I am. If I'm not near where there's an easy bathroom to get to, I get very, very upset and tense and worried. I don't want a disaster in my car. I don't want a disaster wherever I am. That's both for urination and evacuation, same thing. So there's something put into me called a catheter. It's a plastic line that runs from your bladder to a bag that ties onto your leg or something, and you don't have to think about it, you just go, no problem. But with the one they give you in South America that probably cost them maybe 60 cents, there's a problem with the machine. The little bag started not working properly within a day or two, and I had committed to keeping the bag on for a month. Usually it's a week, but he said in my condition a month. So putting all those pieces together, I'm still not afraid. I'm still not angry. I'm still saying God has decided that He's going to allow me to get closer and closer. Boom, suddenly how, not that lucky break, but we get this apartment in a brand new condo building. No one has ever lived in that apartment before. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, nice. And outside is a terrace that faces out into the street with a big wall there. This terrace is 70 feet long, 15 feet wide. And I decided I'm going to fill it with trees and plants and trees and trees, and the whole thing looks like a personal forest out there. That's where I can sit during the day, receive the sunshine, and work. A very nice man I meet, who's my upstairs neighbor. He's up on the 7th or 8th floor. A German citizen, who started out as a German citizen. Engineer, lived in Canada, good success career-wise in Canada. His practice now consists of going to people where they're going to build an airport or this or that, and with a dowser, he's able to say, build here, don't build there. He's wonderful. He's a loving man. And I realize that I love this man. He loves me. I love Patrick. I love Robert. I'm meeting people. I have a life of more people than I've ever had in my personal life. Through all this, Sue and the pianist, they founded something called the Ecuador Jazz Society, Ecuador Jazz Society. And we have a gig that we play music. Sue and I play 2 nights a week. And our idea is to meet young musicians who are able to play their instruments but don't know the language of jazz, and to teach them the language of jazz, and to provide an orchestra for them to apprentice in, which is playing with Sue and I, and Sue conducts and teaches and all this. So the jazz scene is straight. I hadn't played my horn in public in 30, 40 years, and here I am playing 2 nights a week. Okay, time to come back to the States. I have a hernia now. I don't know how I got it, but boom, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm in the States. Find a doctor in Allentown. He operates on the hernia, puts in a shield so it won't break again. And here I have that right now. If I sing, I don't hit any high notes. And that's acceptable too. Now I'm looking for therapies that involve ozone therapy, therapies that involve heat, therapies that involve hypertherapy, which is heat, and there's something called marijuana, which has turned out in the last, to my knowledge, 2-3 years, not to smoke for pleasure or recreational, because that's the part in it that's got THC, but this is to be boiled, made into liquid, and it's one of the most powerful curing elements known.
Boiled, I think it's juicing, not boiling.
What?
Juicing.
Juicing,
not boiling, yeah.
One of the ideas is that a pound of marijuana, which is a rather big object with seeds and everything, gets reduced down to a vial about this big and about that wide, gets boiled down to that, and that's what you take, put it under your tongue a few times a day. The results of it throughout the world have been staggering, highly popular in many civilized places. It is still illegal in the United States. If you can prove that you're a cancer patient, in some states you're allowed to buy marijuana for recreational use to take away pain. It is not considered a healing agent. It is not considered a medicine. It is considered a class number 1 drug, which is a prison sentence and not to be sent through the mail or anything like that, or cross the state border, one state to another. So I guess from here on in, the trip may be my going to a state where it's allowed, which is basically Washington, California, Colorado, a country where it's allowed, which is Paraguay, Uruguay, and continue to ingest on a daily basis at least 100 pills, 10 of these, 6 of those, 4 of those, 2, all day long. Eat what I'm supposed to eat. And out of all this, even with all the kindness that God has given me, I have never in my life cooked a meal. I can barely make coffee. I make it pretty good. I'm a Puerto Rican prince. I have a mother whose job is to be in the kitchen cooking. I have an aunt who comes over to visit her whose job is to cook and iron my shirts. I have a father who doesn't have a word to say in this world except go out and bring home his paycheck, put it on the table. And all I'm supposed to do is look good. That was my young manhood, and I lived with my parents till I was in my early 30s on this kind of basis. Gil, there's no point in you going out and playing a stupid job at a stupid bar. I'm paying the rent here, which is the same whether you're here or not. I pay the electric whether you're here or not. Why in the world do you want to embarrass yourself and all like go to some stupid bar to play music? Gil, how much do you need? Well, down there I found that I want to be able to cook some for myself. So there's something called green plantains. They look like huge bananas, not that big, not that fat. And I make them so deliciously. I love them. I love the way I make. They're great. I eat them every single day. And I learned to make quinoa. And what else do I make? That's two. I think there's about four.
You make yuca
I make yuca, which is the same as the banana kind of thing, yeah.
in coconut oil.
All in coconut oil, yeah. And I think that I'm about the happiest man I know. I give my thanks to the universe and to the work. 500 times a day. When I have my moments of darkness, and they do occur, and they are pretty dark, I pray for God to help me with a passion, and I believe that God helps me and is my companion and loves me, and I am not alone as long as I have faith that my Creator is with me. And I'm going to keep going. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but all I can do is keep faith in my Creator and live and keep trying and keep the work going. Because if it hadn't been for the work, I would have folded back in that doctor's office in December. Oh my God! But I didn't. This is the work, and that's what the work sent me, and this is what I need for my next episode. I need this quality of work. Decided that in whatever future there is, I will also want to work as a consultant, as a guide, as a support to other people who have what they call terminal illnesses, because I can understand them and they can understand me. I've got folders of information. I'm beginning to know an awful lot about cancer, which is maybe 1/1000th of what I have to know and what I have to learn. And this is what I am at this point, what I'm doing here, what I will continue to do here. And I found the ability to look at somebody and say, they're alive just like I am. They bleed, they hurt, they laugh, they want to live, they're afraid. That man walking down the street, he really is my brother. He's not just a thing that I don't know or have to know. So that's part of my work. Allowing myself to let go and love the people that I'm around. And what better atmosphere to practice in? In Ecuador, two men call it, te quiero, I love you. I love you between man and man is natural. That's the way we live down there. In the United States, you don't live that way exactly. So I found people that say, of course we love you. The guy upstairs loves me. Everybody I know down there really loves me, calls, visits, cares. And all I can do is keep struggling to live. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Thank you. You are my family. The people in this room are the people I love. You're an essential part of my life and have been for many, many years. You are my family. The men here are my sons. The women here are my daughters. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, Candy. She came last year after Harry and Zsa Zsa died, and she's what you call a rescue dog. She was her and Joe. They had some pretty heavy lives because when we first met them, put out your hand to they cringe back and slide away. I'm sure that they've been the object of a lot of bad scenes, and part of what we can do is make life much better for them. And they're helping to make life much better for us. I allow myself to love them. Had Harry and Zsa Zsa for 10, 12 years. They have never gone away. I always, out of the corner of my eye, it's almost like I see Harry walking out the door or into another room. I found that you can love and love again, and the love that you had the original time does not diminish. It stays. I will have Harry in my mind and in my heart for the rest of my days. And these folks here, and whoever's on the road too. What do you think, Derek, of all these
Well,
songs of the road?
I guess the one thing that comes to mind is to ask you a question: How can we be of help in any way to you? That's kind of the main thing I'd like to say. And and also I was thinking as you were speaking how strong and healthy and courageous you appear to be, amidst all this. And of course, it's pretty shocking news, and not pleasant news, and yet I just feel that you appear, thinking back, if this happened in December, you seem so strong and healthy to me, as you're during meetings, my meeting, personal meetings, and also the group meetings, and kind of what courage it took to, still be giving to other people amidst this great, different time in your life. So, it definitely gives me a lot of inspiration. If anything would happen to myself or other people that are close to me, that this is, really an example of how to deal with something that's, real life and death occurrence. And, I just feel lucky to be here, to hear this, from you, and not secondhand or something. So, appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Thank you. There's that old story about Buddha who met this old lady who said death has come, and she was wrecked. And he said, well, go to every door of the village and knock and see if there's a door where death has not come to visit. And she did that, and every door that she knocked on, death had come. And it's going to come to all of us. It's going to come to our parents, the people in our family that we love most, our children. You can't get out of this world alive.
I would like to say, there are those who walk into the light and those who do not. And on a core level, it's as simple as that.
No, I'm in the meeting.
Being a person who walks into the light, as you have, holds with every breath the light. And it's a very special energy that what's being given to all of us by yourself is like that moment in the Last Supper where the symbol of the Holy Ghost is above the table. I don't know that he's above the table in the picture, but he's above the table. And it's like a very precious substance. And it's up to all of us to use that to further what we've created in all our years of work. And we are experimenting in the world of the miraculous. And one sees oneself rise above the ordinary mind and what it's like to keep going second by second above the law of gravity. And I feel that that quality of seeking life is how all our days must be spent. And I will never forget this moment. And I feel I've done my part and will continue to do so. Thank you, Sue. And thank you to everyone.
You went through a time with your father. And your old teacher.
Robert.
Right. I'm amazed that the miracles keep happening so much that they're not miracles anymore. It's a miracle, but it's not a miracle that doesn't happen. It's things that happen in a certain way and in a certain light. They're called miracles. But they happen, I think, because we want them to happen. Our voices are able to reach the ears of that which creates a miracle, because we really, really want it. Sometimes I say to myself, well, what's the next terrific thing that's going to happen? And I know that it's going to happen. No doubt about it. I had made up my mind 8 months ago that I would never, ever disclose this to the people I work with, you people. And then my friend Robert said, well, sometimes people should know. For their good, as much as for yours, as much for their good. To reach that part of themselves that can feel that. And here I am. Now, I told you. And whatever happens next is what happens next. On the plus side, I have had this for 8 months. I have never really felt one pain. I have never felt sick. Like, pretty much like it always was. What's in the future? I don't know, but I find that I'm more prepared to face whatever the universe has in store for me. Because it's important for me to love each moment of life. I have to. If I fall into the trap of being negative, that's bad news. And that's not to say that I'm always on top of it. There are times when it is black and spooky and good heavens, help, help, help. But help always comes. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 hours of prayer, sometimes it takes more than that. But it comes. It's a miracle for me to have met Sue. A miracle. I can't believe how lucky I am.
Can I get that in writing?
For $4.95, I'll sign anything.
I'm very grateful to Sue for doing such a good job taking care of Gail. So,
Yeah.
just wanted to know. And thank you for telling us. From now on, I'll be lighting a candle for you, Gail, every single day.
Thank you. Thank you. One of my fears was that, and it took place in the club in South America, the person always came around, wow, great, band sounds good, top dog, groovy. After this person somehow found out, oh, Bill, are you feeling all right? Oh, God, now I'm in for it. Are you feeling better today? Please try not to die on the set. I better not tell this to anyone. How did you find this trip? She's been on it from day one. Not easy.
Well, I think it was amazing I mean, when I picked Cuenca to buy an apartment, I mean, Gil didn't even see the first apartment that I bought there. I just, was looking around for someplace warm that he could go to because he didn't like the winter here. And I found Cuenca, and I found this. I went around on a real estate tour looking at all apartments, and there was nothing I could afford to buy. And then on the very last day of the tour, they showed us this apartment. And I said, "How much is it?" And he said, and he named a price, and he said, "But I think you could probably get it a little lower." So then they took us to the golf club, and everyone was walking around the golf club except me. I was on the phone with my finance guy. Can we do this? And then after I made the deal for the apartment, everybody else on the tour said, "Oh, I wanted that apartment." But they were looking at the golf course. And when it was just like Battery Park, this little apartment. And when Gil saw it, he got Battery Park back, and then we sold that apartment and got this bigger place. But even like just finding Patrick and Robert, and I mean, Patrick could have gone anywhere with his wife to set up their wellness clinic, and they chose Cuenca. They came from Vancouver.
This guy has studied with giants. The person does this, what to do? Yes, I've studied with him for this amount of time.
Yeah, he
So this man is his intelligence is uncanny. He is probably the most intelligent man I've ever met.
and someone you can have confidence in. Like a lot of the doctors that Gil had to deal with, he hated them.
Yeah, they looked shaky.
What was Patrick's last name?
Cody. Coady. So of all the, when we first went to Cuenca, we had no idea Gil was going to get sick and was going to, need to get care. And then it turned out that the very care that he needed was right there. So I thought that was amazing and wonderful.
The last time I was here, your daughter was just a little girl.
Yeah, you came to visit.
She was 2 years old or something,
No,
or
she was
less.
6 months old.
6 months, yeah.
You came to give her a blessing,
I did, yeah. I remember
and
that.
we had a meeting.
I remember that.
You gave us a meeting, Mal and myself and Leon.
How old's your daughter now?
She's going to be 25. And you always told me to see her in altered state and never look at her in detail, but always look at the whole person. And I remember that very clearly. And she's a drummer in a punk band. She's working 4 different jobs to support her art. So this is what she's at. This is her process now. And it's good.
You mean she's not going to become a dentist?
No.
Yes.
It's so great that you spoke to us about this. I would have felt really terrible if you just went, and there was no.
Went? By bus or something?
And especially because it's facing all of us, and it's such a meaty issue with the work anyway.
Yes.
That it's great to really talk about it.
Yeah. It's things like this are in store for every human being in the world. Everyone. And we've joked so much for years that nobody ever talks about a casket sale. You know, they're selling very, very good caskets, and for half the price for Columbus Day. Very comfortable lining inside. Oh, you'll love it. Whoever you have in mind. So, as civilized people, we don't mention these things ever, ever, ever. But I think you should always have a good mortuary list in your pocket or in your computer. Hello, yes, this is me. Yeah. Well, look, the time came. Remember that casket we were spoken about? You said it was going to be $12.98. Can you cut that down to $12.50? Oh, sure. Come on in.
There's an exercise that I was reading about by Abdi Asadi. He wrote a book called Shadows in the Past.
Mm-hmm.
And the exercise is to picture yourself dying. So sit down and go through the process of drawing your last breath. Whether that's in an accident or surrounded with family. And my girlfriend did it last night, and it was a remarkable experience.
What did she find? What did you go through?
I can only describe the effect afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And the room, when I walked in, it was hopping with energy. And it gave her true perspective. Literally said, what am I worrying about? She saw a truth in that state.
Mm.
I haven't done it myself. It's beautiful. I only want to say two things to you. I love you. And thank you.
I thank you and I love you too. Has to be. Years ago when Pam and Jim first started coming around, remember I used to describe this body as a suit? And to come more and more to believe that, and I'm not 100% in it. This is a suit. Like when you go out and you buy a suit, you hang it in the closet, for some reason it's torn or it's shrunk or this or that, you give it away or Salvation Army or something. That isn't you, it's your suit. And to be more in the idea that Gil, me, this is not me, this is the suit I wear to put around me so I won't be invisible. Or cold. But coming to believe that I always was and I always will be. We're immortal. The suit wears out and falls apart. But we, the being, the essential self, is immortal. It was so inspiring to hear about that woman at your job who suddenly had a remission or whatever. knowing that it can happen. It continues to happen, not to everybody, but it continues to happen. After however long you walk into the doctor and he says, I don't see anything at all, it's all done.
When you were speaking, I couldn't help but think of that story a little bit. And also, a little amazed that this much time has gone by that we didn't know these things. But thank you very much for sharing them. I was also thinking the thought that I remember there was a moment kind of midway through our first couple of years where I realized that you were human.
Yeah.
It took a while. But I think it's an extremely beautiful thing. I think that I remember when we first started meeting, the power and the energy of the work and of being with you and uncovering things. It's seeing a piece of the immortal, this work. So it's not surprising to me that there was a time when I was not totally certain what part of you was human and what wasn't. Because we are looking at something immortal.
Yeah.
But also our lives are made up of the things that we've been talking about tonight. You presented. This is the majority of our life, really. I still look at my life and what I have ahead of me with parents and whatever losses and illnesses and whatever we have to face. It's tremendous how much there is, really. But this is the work. This is how we live that is what it's about. And I really take great inspiration from the way that you live.
My first reaction might be a strange one, which is, I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, thank you. I understand that. There's always a part that says, how can you think that life is good? Yeah,
I feel very, very honored to be here for this message.
in a lot of ways, the way that this community has throughout many years dealt with work seems to be a lot different than the way it's usually discussed in books. We're doing something very lifelike here. We're really well, I've always sort of had to look to it the way, remember yourself. And then when we think of that, we write down a list of things that our crazy parts have done, or one of ourselves has said, or this or that. But I think it means remember yourself. Remember that you have a soul. Remember the part that doesn't die. Remember the essential you. That is what really counts. The other stuff is what we bring to the table and what we have to live with, and so forth, so forth. But maybe it's meant that we should remember our essential selves, that no matter what is happening, the essential self is the one that's doing the living. What do you like tonight?
In awe a bit of the story, and the story being reality, and what should be some kind of a cheeseball offhand joke. Perhaps it's because I'm sitting so close. I was thinking as you were speaking, is he getting younger? He looks he's so young, and I think it's because that's some really youthful stuff, and almost by my estimation, athletic. Your efforts sound like to me, and you think about the phrase "he's a fighter" or anything like that. The image I have of that is one of like a guy in a hospital, hardly there, and they say, "Oh, he's a fighter, he's going to make it," or stuff like that. It's like that sounds like an actual fight to me, and they say athletic, going to South America and trying out all these alternative therapies and taking the, I don't know if it's a death sentence, but the bleak portrait that American medicine has handed you, and saying, thank you very much, on to the next, let's see something else, and commendable, and in a word, awesome. And I think of the average person, maybe their experience with the idea of death, other than until someone really dies, is maybe they've heard the name Kubler-Ross or come across some idea of coping with death in a psychology class, but my experience of it is that it's not even remotely real until someone you love dies, which my only experience with that is Jammy, my beloved reptile, and even then I don't think I can't imagine it's as real as facing one's own mortality. And I think the experience of being faced with something like that can provide many things, and it's on an individual basis. My father, for instance, no fault to him, and in no bad way I say, largely unaffected by his brush with cancer and death that he made it out of. As far as I can tell, he's really the same exact guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's for his process of living this life this time around. That's what was in store, and I believe that's what was supposed to happen for someone who's working on themselves, and for someone who is really considering a different approach to life, afterlife, and our existence. It's a very different experience. And on the note of I believe it's oil you put on your tongue, right? The THC oil?
Yeah.
I don't know about Colorado or anywhere else, but I knew some people in Michigan. There's a community of people who are really big into the oil there, swear by it, and say...
Let me know what you can. For everybody, whatever you hear that you think it's of value, let me know. I need all the information I can get a hold of. If I have to go as far as Uruguay, I'll have to do it. I got to do it.
I thought there was something about New York changing its policy. Just recently I heard something.
They did,
Yeah.
but I don't know if there's any system in place to dispense medical marijuana here yet.
See, at present, there's a set of laws for the states. Every state has its own little version of laws. However, the federal law says that it is a drug. In all definitions, it's a drug, and it's illegal, and it's a jail sentence if you have it and if you sent it. That hasn't changed.
And it's a matter of who wants to go up against who in terms of the lawsuit.
Yeah, well, this battle's been going on a while, and it's still what it is. But
Is it a
whatever
question,
information comes my way,
is it a question of getting it or transporting it at this point?
Well, it's both.
Okay.
Because if you may be in a state where it's legal, but if you leave that state with something that you bought in that state, you could have a problem.
It's also that the federal law supersedes, can challenge the state law,
yeah.
but they don't tend to do it in this area because of the states deciding what they did in terms of legislation. But they can do, it seems like they're willing to pick their fights, so they're federal.
So at the end of it, we're speaking in broad terms, like, is it a matter of like someone getting in a car, driving to California, and picking this up?
Yeah,
Is
well,
that what we're talking about?
I wanted to look in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
It's not legal in Pennsylvania, but of course people grow it. So but it's not a conversation I can have on the phone with people. So I have to go find some people to ask, and then try to meet someone who can possibly supply us with some. And just like a general overview of it, there are two aspects of the marijuana. You have the THC, which is activated when it's heated, and that's why the psychoactive properties are activated by either smoking or cooking, right? So that's why you can make your brownies, whatever. But then there's another element, the cannabinoid, and that's the health element of it, and it's called either CBD or CBDA. And usually the strains that have they'll have either a higher content of THC or a higher content of the CBDA. So what's preferred in this type of protocol is to find the strains that have the high content of CBDA, and then you ingest it either raw or by making it into this oil. So you can either juice it or you can make it into this oil. Patrick feels that juicing it is the best option. And this is what they used to do in Vancouver, where he's from.
So juicing it, you'd want the actual plants.
You have to get the actual plants.
And you juice it like you would juice anything.
Yes. And if I don't know if you guys saw the full page ad in the New York Times last Sunday from leafly.com. It's leafly.com, and they bought a full page ad in the New York Times as soon as that Compassionate Care Act was passed. And if you go to their website, you'll see they have lists of dispensaries and everything in every state, or in every state where it's legal. And they discuss the different strains and the qualities of the different types that are available. It's very scholarly, but it's has a modern look to it as well. Because this is really the method of choice for a lot of people dealing with a lot of different issues. Whether it's inflammation or whether it's cancer or whether it's autoimmune disorder or pain. Yeah.
There's protocol that many, hundreds if not thousands of people involved in of a bicarbonate of soda or baking soda and honey or something sweet like that, be it molasses, maple syrup. That, for instance, if you boil 1 part of maple syrup to 3 parts of bicarbonate of soda, regular Armstrong baking soda, that when that much sugar is ingested, the cancer cell runs madly to it and eats it, and of course it contains the bicarbonate of soda, which kills the cell. So that's one of the things that some people do 3-4 times a day, that concoction, 3 to 1 of sweet and the baking soda.
What's the name of that, Gil? That's named after a person who discovered that. Do you remember?
No, I don't remember. Oh, and as you read more into this, it's an amazing, interesting, and enormous background of doctors and people who have invented this, and this idea is not from 4 or 5 years ago, this is from many years ago. And yeah, so much education to have in this, and what makes it to me doubly attractive is not only am I involved firsthand in this, but from the way it's going, this is the way that medicine in this country and in the major leading developed countries has to go. There's no more denying that this stuff works, and there's no more denying that after millions and billions of dollars, the standard treatment of cutting and spraying everything with killing cells simply does not work. 3% survival is a very, very low survival rate, and that's what the survival is now. So this is going to be more and more, and laws and states and voting, and it's here to stay.
When we had the first meeting in Patrick's office, Patrick said, this is a full-time job. And it really was. I mean, when we were in Cuenca, we had help because Teresa came 3 days a week, and she took care of making the juice and buying the vegetables for us, bringing them to the apartment. And then I trained her to make the soup. This is also a special soup that he takes. And all the supplements and taking them at the right times and with food or without food, and it's a complex thing. I mean, he was really right when he said it was a full-time.
It is a full-time job.
Yeah.
There's stuff that I have to have before breakfast and an empty stomach, and that's a list of maybe 10 or 12 things that I have to have. 4 of these, 3 of those, 2 of those, 10 of those, and then divide them up because you can't swallow them all at once. And that's the morning shift. Then there's another long list into the rest of the day, and there's another list into the night, full time.
And Patrick said, this isn't for everyone. He said some people just want to go to a clinic or something and just let someone else do these things for them, or they want to just go the traditional medical route and do whatever the doctor says, go to this radiation treatment, go to this chemo session. And in a way it's easier because you just put yourself in someone else's hands. But I think, like Gil's saying, that the trend is that you have to take responsibility for your own health, because nobody else can really know you like you know you. And if you can also cultivate some sensitivity about your body and what feels right and what doesn't feel right. I know I had a lot of bad experiences myself with doctors overdosing me on medications, and finally I just said, you know what, they really don't know me like I know me, so to take, and I think that really is helping Gil a lot, that he did sign on to take that responsibility for his own health and not just let doctors tell him do this, do that.
And thank goodness that the plain work that we've been doing all these years made it possible for me to do this. It's easier to say, I can't take any more pills. What time is it? I'll quit for the day. I'll do it tomorrow. But to be a person who can dig in and really do this, it's very, very demanding, and there's no room for forgetting or glossing over it. So it's important to know that we, as possible clients ourselves, patients ourselves, caregivers for our friends and families, we've got to deliver this kind of determination to the situations that are probably going to arise in our lives.
Gil, how do you want to handle telling other people who aren't here tonight?
I think everyone is entitled to know. I'm not ducking anything anymore. I know that of all people, I haven't yet mentioned it to Alex. It hasn't come up yet, but I was thinking of calling her this evening. Yeah, I'll call it probably tomorrow. Because one person knew, another person does.
Alex has some really powerful healers that might be helpful.
Send whatever you can send my way. I'm delighted to share of it and have it, of course.
What is the medical name of the cancer that you have? What is the medical name for the cancer that you have?
Andia. It's a long word. It's like a third or fourth stage. It's in the bladder. And if you have interest and you get into this, there's more information. There are books that you can, of information right on the internet, of all the different kinds and different remedies and different things that people have done, inventions made, machines made. It's a subject that's gaining more and more momentum because more and more people are getting sick. When I was a kid, I never ever heard of anyone had. I remember there was this old lady that I had heard of when I was 3 or 4. She used to be in a room screaming from the pain of it, but nobody else I ever heard of had it. And now every time you turn around, somebody else has it that you know. The food that we get growing out of the ground no longer has the same curing, healing power that the food had 40, 50 years ago. It just doesn't work. There's all kinds of heavy toxins and metals and all these things that are really here, and they're affecting people. Just like when the World Trade Center, the governor of New Jersey, had said, "Don't worry, it's all fine, it's all for that." And I said, "Yeah, I've already got emphysema when I started, and now you're going to tell me that all those hundreds of thousands of fluorescent light bulbs disappeared and shattered, and that's not going to bother anybody?" Well, I moved. And now they're beginning to see that every day more and more people that were in that first rescue teams and those, they're all sick. Yeah. So, it's important It's important for all of us to remember that. The way we live our lives. But for years and years and years and years and years, my idea of a great meal was pastrami and salami and all the other delicatessen stuff, which is now really considered plain poison. You look somewhat different, Mark. You look different. I don't know what you're thinking or whatever, but what's coming through from the inside to the outside is of a somewhat different nature. This is another Mark.
Feel very different. Sensations in this meeting have been definitely different than other meetings. I am also struck by the fact that we are at like a dining table. It's like a family called us before. Some daughters. There's a lot of beauty and imagery and things that are coming to me tonight. I was thinking earlier like how else can we help? Talking about the story we tell ourselves and the imagination and the way that we can change the outer world. How can I take a practice to think for you what you want, the cure for you. I mean, you're already taking so many different wonderful advices, but certainly I want to pray for you as well.
And do that, I sure can use it. And whatever information you may run into will certainly be deeply appreciated. Because I'm going on information.
I have had an experience recently of the mind bringing a very negative outcome to mind. Maybe whatever situation may be presented, the paranoia mind likes to come up with the worst possible outcome. And what I've been doing recently is just I've actually been doing it with the physicality of just flicking it away and turning it off. Whether it be, and it's been quite successful of late that I have been able to just remove that thought from my mind and try and place in it what I want to happen instead of that darker side of self that likes to imagine what could happen. So I offer that as another way. Just get rid of those negative thoughts, whatever they may be, whenever the darker hours come. And I certainly want to think of what positive, what I want to see. And how can I manifest that?
remember when Albert first introduced that first book of the New Thought people?
Mm-hmm.
Neville Goddard.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that, and very, very soon after I got to Neville Goddard, and he comes along with about 50 other people of the New Age, of the New Thought writers. So I got a small satchel full of those books. And then I found an awful lot myself with that man Anderson. I found a lot there. And always will be studying and working.
This feels like an enormous gift of love. Tonight, this meeting, you're sharing. Thank you.
As a young man growing up in the streets of the Bronx, any kind of affection between two men, any kind of nice talk, what do you talk like that for? Are you a fairy or something? The world that I was born into, the streets of the Bronx. How you doing? Well, all right. Kill anybody today? Yeah, very few, but nothing to write home about. You know, the tougher you were a real man. A real man is tough and hard and violent. That was the neighborhood crowd. But, the world as we see it is not like that, not the whole world. And I know in my home, I never once heard the word love. I don't recall my father ever using the word love to my mother or myself. I don't recall my mother using the word love to anybody. So we grow up with this idea that being soft, being tender, understanding, caring, sharing. Are you kidding? What kind of word is that? Share. Get your own shit. But the world is changing. And in so many ways, the people who are caring and affectionate and loving are mounting up and becoming stronger. And also, on the other hand, more and more violent things are happening than ever before. If that's leading towards a polarity, going to be hard to live with, but hard to live with already. Oh, here's another bit of the tale of the medical business. Okay, somebody speaks of this. Yeah. Oh, the guy that performed my surgery, he gives me a number of another surgeon who is good, and probably does this. I call his office. Hello, yes. Not him, the secretary, of course, or somebody. I would like to ask Dr. Such and Such if he does PVP work. the real meanings of these initials are so long I can't even say them without getting dizzy. She said, "You're not his patient." I said, "No, I'm not his patient. Never spoke, and then I'd never seen the man before." Says, "Well, he can't just talk to you without you being his patient." And I said, "Well, I'm talking to him to find out if I want to be his patient." She says, "No, that can't be." I said, "Well, how is this done?" She said, "Well, I'm not sure. I haven't run into this situation before. The only one who talks to their doctor is their patient. And you've got to be somebody's patient." So I'm having a very, very difficult day. I'll call you back at the end of the week or something. So I called her and she said that she's going to talk with him. He's on vacation now. Now, you cannot just go off the street and talk to a doctor unless you pay him cash, if he takes cash, and he's not allowed to take you on as... No, they don't do that. That went out. You don't no longer audition doctors. If you're my patient, I'll talk to you. If you're not my patient, well, sign here and become my patient. You can become my patient in an hour. If you don't become my patient, what am I going to send to the, Medicare to get paid for this hour that I talk to you? So this is a very, very intense and real business. And they come in partnerships, 4, 5, 6, and they pay for the machines that they use, and these machines are hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they're not going to buy a machine and give it up in 3 or 4 years before they've made their money back on it, just because a better machine was made. So that bunch of doctors will always deal with that machine until they get paid back for it. This, to me, is dirtier than show business. I thought the music business was scroungy and grubby. This is doctor business. So I'm still waiting to see a doctor who could explain to me what PVP is and can he do it. And I haven't found him yet. Imagine if they had something like boiling a donkey's ear. With lots of salt and pepper, and throw into the mix a well-rusted horseshoe. And somebody takes that and gets cured immediately because it works beautifully. How can you say, Mr. James came into my office, he asked me for something to treat him, and I gave him this recipe and it worked? We can't pay you for that, James. That's not in the list of medications. So before something is given to you or suggested to you, it has to be on the approved list of medications. Oh, wow. So what are the odds of discovering something like donkey's ears works great for your throat? None whatsoever. That's not an approved medicine. In fact, if you have a patient and you dare to tell him that he should take a donkey's ear and a horseshoe for medicine, he's going to sue us all forever. That's called malpractice. This is so involved. I really basically don't know what to do next. Where do you find a doctor that's for real?
After Gil had the hernia surgery, which is, abdominal surgery is really painful, so they prescribed Percocet, which is a narcotic, and I went to the drugstore to fill it, and I don't know how the pharmaceutical, what the laws are and everything, but it turns out that they fill prescriptions generically unless the doctor writes dispense as written on the prescription. Otherwise, they won't really give you Percocet. They'll give you whatever generic they happen to be touting that week. And from what I understand, a lot of generics don't work, or they don't work for some people. The doctor will swear up and down that it's the same thing, but it's obviously not the same thing because each company that makes the generic drug makes it differently. And so the painkiller didn't do anything for him, not one thing. Aleve worked better than this, supposedly fancy painkiller. So if you do get a prescription, make sure the doctor writes dispense as written, or else you're not going to get that.
And there's a new pill that's supposed to be terrific for something, and it's $1,000 a pill. It's sold by one of the leading drug manufacturers, assuming that it is fantastically good for something in acute. You can't expect the man on the street who has a right to live and be cured to come up with $1,000 a pill, because the average cancer treatment goes into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. It is assumed that you will have to sell your home and everything you have to pay for the treatment. And then your odds of surviving it are extremely small.
But that's good, because you don't have a house to live in anymore anyway.
You don't need one now. That's criminal. That is really a major crime. To have somebody's health and maybe their lives depend upon something that only 1 out of 5,000 people can afford to live with. So it's the 1% who are going to say, well, so what? Get a bottle or two. I didn't really know about this until I got on the road with this band. Because I haven't been a go to doctor's guy. Let me have it. Break an arm, go to the emergency room, they set it, and they tell you come back next week, and if it's working okay, I had no idea that it was this politically oriented. You're being cured and having your life saved is not the main object. It's to pay off hundreds of thousands of dollars of machines, and like the 4 doctors in Strasbourg, they own the little hospital that they operate out of, and they own the machines. These guys are multimillionaires. Because the guy who comes around and gives you an injection for your sleeping through, that's $1,000 injection. The guy gets paid $1,000 for that injection. You get this bill back. It's unbelievable. On the other hand, in Cuenca, you go to the doctor's office, $20. And if he has to come to your house, he'll also come to your house, $25. and I went to get a prescription in the drugstore, and they didn't have it. And he said, "Well, the other drugstore of our branch has it. I'll get it. I'll bring it by your house." And at 8:30 at night, knock on the door. The guy came. He brought the medicine. He says, "I didn't have it. I would have brought it back soon." So maybe that's why a lot of people are wondering where they're going to plant roots. You don't go to doctors much, do you, Ben? Sue isn't a doctoral person. James is not a doctor, I know that.
How's your cough? How's your cough, James?
Cough?
Yes. You're not well in the wintertime. I thought it was a cough. Am I making this up?
He was well.
I think so, yeah.
I'm making it
Oh,
up.
so-
You seem great now.
Twirl around 3 times to the right, twirl 4 times to the left, and spit. Pooh! Thank you.
Actually, I did have pneumonia,
Yeah.
and I went to the hospital, and in retrospect, I feel I would have done much better if I had just stayed at home
Really?
and rested, because basically what I needed is rest, and they gave me antibiotics, and it completely screwed up my digestive system for a year. Yeah. So-
Always take acidophilus if you take antibiotics.
Yeah, I did that afterwards, but still
Yeah.
wasn't pleasant.
No, hate those.
And also I didn't get that much sleep in the hospital because they in the middle of the night they'd come in, and they'd come in at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and then there was noisy all day, and you know, moving beds around and moving this around, and coming to check my blood. I mean, my blood pressure. They check my blood pressure like 5-6 times a day. What was going to happen? I had pneumonia. What's my blood pressure have to do? You know, you check it once when you come in. That's it. Just total insanity. And then the food, of course, was total crap.
Oh, yeah. And then for so many illnesses, at the end of your meal, they give you Jell-O. And that's the worst possible thing you can give somebody whose life depends upon not taking in sugar. Give him a little Jell-O at the end of it. He'll feel better. He'll pay his bills sooner.
Mm.
It's going on 10 o'clock. Is this what it
No,
is?
10 of 11.
Hmm?
No, 10
11.
of 10.
11.
11.
11? No.
No, 10. What?
11, yes. It's 10 minutes to 11.
Yeah.
10:49.
You can't tell time.
I don't know what I watch. This might not be working.
People, thank you very, very, very much from the bottom of my heart. It was and is so important for me to have you as my family. It's very important. And it makes a lot of difference. And prayers help a lot, so if you find you've got nothing to do, take a prayer. Send a prayer to Gilly.
Well, let's do one right now.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
Oh, that's,
Yeah.
are we holding hands?
We are holding hands.
Yeah.
We unite in peace, we unite in love, we unite in brotherhood, and that's what a conscious family is. People who understand that they are all representatives of the strength of life and belief. Okay. We will go to the hills of Monticello. Oh! Does disable